Siobhan, and thank you so much for taking some time out this morning to interview for this position. Um, as you know, this position as the Public Information Officer with our law enforcement agency is a critical component of our leadership team, and so I appreciate your interest in this position.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So what we're going to do is do a behavior type interview, and it will allow you an opportunity to share in a little bit more detail about some of your experiences through descriptions and stories of specific examples of how you intertwine those stories. So before we get started, I would like you to spend the first couple minutes just sharing a little bit more about yourself and and where that relates to the position that you're applying for.
Okay. Well, I received my bachelor's in communications. I have a emphasis on radio and television broadcasting from San Francisco State University. And I'm currently enrolled in a graduate program in organizational leadership, which I think will be a huge benefit to me within this position. I've held multiple different leadership roles throughout my career, but most recently I have worked at a communications call center, so I've really worked with dealing a lot with the public, so I think I have a good, sort of emphasis on what it is the public needs. As well as that position was with a law enforcement agency. So I think I have a good grasp on what it is that law enforcement looks for, both for what the public sees as well as what they want to present to everyone.
So what I'm hearing you saying is taking your communication skills in the background, that you've learned through both your undergraduate degree as well as what you're pursuing in your master's, but really understanding the specific dynamics of how the public relates to that through the law enforcement agency is really the breadth and depth of the experience that you bring to this role.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, great. So now we're going to move into the behavioral piece. So what I would ask you is, as I ask these questions, try to think either of a story or a situation that would kind of depict what this is about. So obviously at times probably in your daily life, you've had to analyze information and make a recommendation. Can you think of a time that you had a thought process that you had to go through? What was that reasoning that you made behind a specific decision, and kind of what was the outcome of that decision?
Sure. I think probably the most recent I can think of is in my last position, we had a substandard training program, one that when people came through, it kind of gave them the bare minimum of what they needed and didn't move forward than anything else. So I was asked to reevaluate our training program and try to develop something more so that we could provide the best service for those coming in. So I really had to sit and think about what I went through in my training program to see what improvements were needed and what I could use to really help people, both who learned on a visual level and those who learned by reading and doing the actual process. So, I think that it was a little bit of a process trying to get through everything that we did, but I finally was able to redo the training program with the help from one of my colleagues, and it became really successful. All of those coming in behind us definitely have more of a basis for what it is to be a communications dispatcher, and how to really succeed in that position without sort of being thrown into the fire, which was what the process was that they used before.
So I love that you took your own experience and the things that may not have been as successful for you, and maybe those obstacles that you had to overcome, and then figured out a way to smooth out those obstacles so that the process would be better and more effective for those that are coming after you. Right. Great example. Thank you. So oftentimes we hear the word initiative, and that's usually meant to positive, but sometimes too much may not always be as positive. Can you think of a time that you demonstrated too much initiative and what the impact of that was?
Yeah, In the position I'm in currently, we sort of, I don't want to say that we lack in certain areas, but there are always room for improvement.
Yeah.
So I, took it upon myself to try and make these changes to help improve our processes and improve other aspects. And I thought of all these ideas, and I came forward to the management about this is what we should do, and this is why, and these are all the positive changes it could make, and was met with quite a bit of resistance. They were happy with the processes we had. There wasn't anything wrong in what we were doing. It just wasn't necessarily, in my eyes, the most effective. Mm-hmm. So they, thanked me for my time, but decided that they were going to keep the process that they were doing. And so as difficult as that was, because, I thought, well, gosh, I've got this great idea, and, it's something we should definitely move with. I understand the idea of just because I think it's better doesn't mean it is for the collective. Mm-hmm. So, as it was a good learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that you would approach the situation differently going forward, if you had the next opportunity to present an idea?
I think I probably would test the waters first and decide whether or not the organization as a whole is looking for, more effective or better practices, yeah. And then present ideas if that is what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think testing the waters is always a good thing, just to understand where people are able or willing to accept change.
Right.
So, great. Now, moving on, sometimes, we talk about jobs that one has held that you've had to have little or moderate attention to detail. Can you think of a time that detail was not probably one of the most prominent pieces of your role, and give an example of how that was illustrated?
Sure. In most of the positions I've held, I think attention to detail has been a really important aspect, especially working in law enforcement. Currently, though, I'm working in a call center that doesn't necessarily deal with law enforcement, but deals with sort of the whole county that I live in as a whole. So attention to detail isn't quite as important. We take more generalized calls and can move forward with the things that we need. I think I prefer working in a position where attention to detail is important. I am a very detail-oriented person, and at times can be maybe too much so, but I know that I can succeed in both positions. I just prefer the one that needs more attention to detail.
Okay, good. And so that was a good compare-contrast example of detail versus non-detail. Is there one particular aspect of the attention to detail that you have a passion about, or that you can really connect to why it's important to you, or where your preference comes from for that?
I think for me, it really has to do with when I find that I have a position that really is detail-oriented, it gives me the opportunity to really organize and sort of, plan out the steps for everything that I need. Mm-hmm. I really love being able to do that, to plan out specifically see how the process is going to move from point A to point B. Of course, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to go exactly as I've planned out from point A to point B, but I do like being able to sort of plan out in my head how I think the process will go.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that. I have one kind of final question for you, and then I'm going to walk through next steps of what the interview process will look like from here. So if we were to offer you this position, which would include comprehensive benefits package, and I believe our salaries are very competitive, is there something in particular that you're looking for this in both the salary range or around the benefits that you would be expecting in this role?
Not particularly. I mean, I do appreciate a pretty comprehensive benefit package. Um, you know, for myself, I tend to have a little bit of a, um, not that I need it, but if I don't have it, then I know for sure something will happen. So for me, I think the biggest thing is being able to have that, the benefits. So other than that, I'm definitely open to negotiation as far as salary is concerned.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. So I'm going to take a moment here to talk about next steps. So this, as you're aware, we had the phone interview prior to this, and now that we've had this face-to-face interview, we'll be making decisions at this point for the final interview, and you should be hearing back from me in the next couple of days.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
thank you very much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. And it was great to get to hear a little bit more about your background and experience.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.